Hi, and welcome to the second hour of this Free for All Friday edition Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. We're going to go right to the phones. 888-589-8840 is the number to call if you want to join the conversation on Free for All Friday. Talk about anything that's been in the news over the past week. Piece by John Fund, National Review Online. Democrat strategists are quietly hitting the panic button. This is in the wake of their loss on Tuesday in that special election in Florida. Political analyst Charlie Cook said yesterday, Democrats haven't had a week this bad since 2010, and it's only Wednesday. One of the things that really is alarming to Democrats, polling data, when they were asked whether they were more or less likely to support a candidate endorsed by President Obama, respondents turned thumbs down 42 to 22. Asked whether they would be more likely to back a candidate who was a strong supporter of Obama, the results were even worse, 48 to 26. So people are less likely to vote for a candidate if President Obama endorses them, and they're less likely, even more or less likely to vote for that candidate if he is a supporter of Obama, if he endorses President Obama. And those are bad numbers, 42-22. 48-26, so the Democrats in full-fledged panic, and they ought to be. Let's go to the phones. Let's start with Patty in Martinburg, West Virginia. Patty, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mr. Fisher. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to talk to you about the Bossy campaign.
Yes.
I'm a Christian. I'm agreeing what you're saying. When you look in Scripture, Jezebel was the one who jumped in and took over. My background is I'm a homeschooling mom. I homeschooled my kids for 22 years. At one time, my husband and I were homeschool support group leaders, and we thought that our mission there our ministry was to help people get started, answer their questions, kind of help them get equipped and go on. And over the years, I saw that a lot of times the dads would be, yes, dear, but they would leave the burden on the moms. And the moms would come to us and say, what do we do? How do we get them involved? And we would just pray and all this. And looking at this, and watching over the years, the families where the dad had an active role, those children excelled. And the families that did not have an active dad who was kind of passive, yeah, honey, you do it kind of thing, we saw the children waffle. Academically, they were excellent, but their attitudes and their spirit dad was there, but he wasn't there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, he was there, but he wasn't really present. He wasn't engaged. He wasn't an active part of their lives.
And this is the thing that I think that a lot of moms, they don't want, or a lot of women, they have these gifts. And, like you said, we have that nurturing spirit, and we're watching things fall because the men are not stepping up. And, you go to your husband or you go to your leaders and say, can you do this? Help us, and no, yeah, kind of thing. And I would say there ought to be classes for the guys whose fathers did not teach them how to be a leader. Mm-hmm. And I felt that this was something that the church needed to address because, come on, some of these guys grew up without a dad in the home or with a dad who was passive or did not grow up in a Christian home, and they did not have this kind of training. And I think that's something, the baton has been dropped. And because it's been dropped, we're suffering as a nation. Whatever's in the family is in the workplace, it's in the schools, it's in, it's everywhere. And it's sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, it is. And it's unfortunate because it's kids that suffer, especially young boys that grow up without a strong male role model to imitate, as they move into adulthood. And I wonder, Patty, if it's a part of what we've just this larger cultural trend that we've seen in the last 30 years where males are just constantly hammered, they're constantly beaten down. If they try to exercise any leadership, they're accused of being sexist, of being chauvinistic. And so after a while, they just say, man, it's just kind of not worth the flack.
Yeah, I don't want to stick my head up.
Because every time I do, it's like that whack-a-mole game. Every time I stick my head up, somebody's trying to knock it clean off with a mallet. So, that's where I think wives can be very, very important, in kind of summoning their husbands forward and inviting them to exercise leadership and creating an environment where the male knows that it's a safe place for him to exercise leadership. I look at the essence of leadership as initiative. Is taking that first step, kind of setting the pattern, setting the pace, setting things in motion, kind of initiating conversation, initiating ideas, soliciting. I mean, part of initiation can be soliciting input from, the people that are all going to be affected by that decision. But, and that's what I think we need to encourage men to do, fathers and husbands, is just initiate. And, if a husband finds that his wife is kind of constantly rejecting his initiatives and his suggestions, sort of dismissing them out of hand, it's really not going to be long before that guy just decides to kind of retreat. And he doesn't feel like it's a safe place for him in his own home to exercise leadership. So what guys need to do in a situation like that, I believe, is talk to their wives about that. Say, look, I really would like to exercise my role as the leader in this home, but it's difficult for me because at least it feels to me, I'm not saying you do this, but it feels to me like when I do try to exercise leadership, I just get so much pushback from you that it's hard for me to want to do that again. Could we talk about that? Could we work on that? And then help a wife to see when that happens, because a lot of times it'll happen. A guy will just retreat. The wife is not aware that the husband has retreated because it's not visible to him. And so if the husband if the husband doesn't in that situation step up and say, look, I think what I was talking about, I think it just happened right here. That's kind of how I felt that's how I felt when you said that, when you reacted that way. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I just want to let you know kind of how it felt to me and how I reacted to me. It felt like I was being rejected. My leadership was being rejected, and it just didn't feel very good. And then you give your wife an opportunity to respond to that. So, but I absolutely agree with you, Patty. We have just a crying need for more men. In fact, we have a need for men, who will kind of wade through that, not let something like that stop them from continuing to try to be engaged and active and provide leadership in their homes. Anything else you want to add, Patty, before I let you go?
Oh, just that this has been a problem for years. And Doug Wilson wrote a book, I can't remember the name, but he addressed this issue, how the women would kind of just step in because they saw a need and they're looking at the men, And yes, we do need to be praying for our husbands. We do need to be supporting them, and hoping, and praying that God will step in and wake these guys up and say, okay, let's step forward. Let's do something. But thank you for your show, and thank you for letting me have a comment.
All right. Well, very good. It's very, very good, very insightful comments. I appreciate that very much. So that is it for this first segment. Thank you, Patty, from Martinburg, Virginia, for that call. We'll take some more phone calls moving into the next segment. You are listening to Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. And we'll continue after the break looking at a story about this hospital in Florida. Now, catch this. You know how they've got these red lights now that'll catch people, photograph them going, run the red lights? This hospital this community put up a red light camera right near an emergency room entrance. So they're flagging these people that are in a hurry to get emergency treatment. Here's a guy that was sweating. He had chest pains, had to drive himself to the emergency room, tried to get there in a hurry, got flagged for $158 for running a red light. Back in 2.